Welcome to a new series called This or That, where we debate everything, anything. We can debate real estate, cryptocurrency, we can debate coffee, we can debate personal finances, wealth building topics, entrepreneurship topics. I don't know, we'll probably do a couple around beer, wine, whiskeys also. But today, we're gonna debate single family versus multifamily. So I have my director of acquisitions, Nick Burton here. We've transacted hundreds and hundreds of single family deals. We've transacted hundreds of multifamily deals for a total of probably 5,500 doors. So we have a ton of experience in one, ton of experience in the other, and we're gonna sit down and we're gonna debate what's better to invest in, single family or multifamily. You ready for this?
Born ready.
Let's do this. All right, so here's the deal, Burton. We're gonna hit on really the process map of doing a single family deal versus doing a multifamily deal.
Yep.
All right, so I wanna talk about finding single family versus finding multifamily.
Okay.
I wanna talk about raising capital for, and like when I say finding deals, I mean like the due diligence, marketing, dealing with sellers, all those kinds of things. Then I wanna hit on funding, right, which is gonna be raising money, and then the financing side, obviously with banks. I wanna hit on, make sure we do talk about underwriting and stuff also. And then we're gonna hit on operations, renovating these properties, dealing with contractors, dealing with tenants, all those different kinds of things. And then exit strategies as well. We're gonna run through all those, kind of like the 5 pillars, I guess, of investing. Single family versus multifamily. And we're gonna see who wins. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. All right. Number one, let's talk about finding deals.
Yep.
Finding deals on single family versus finding deals on multifamily. What are your thoughts?
They're pretty similar. I mean, like you said, we've done hundreds of single family houses. We've done thousands of units. And for the most part, we're doing the same marketing or very similar marketing, just tweaking a little bit as we did on single family versus multifamily. I would say the biggest difference is single family, rough numbers, there's 100 million single family homes in the country. We focus primarily on...
Is that a real number?
I think last time I looked it up, it was like 95 million. But
Okay.
this is whatever Google told me first. It sounded right.
Yeah.
100 million homes. And for 100 plus unit multifamily, which that's pretty much what we're looking for, there's somewhere between about 50 and 60,000.
Yep.
So just to run through those leads is astronomically easier than if you try to go buy every single family, right?
Yep.
So I would say follow-up is much easier. There's a lot less to sort through. I would also say you're dealing with a lot more experienced people, not mom and pop. Pretty much anybody who has a multifamily is gonna have email. Single family, some people didn't have email. You're running over to their house to get purchase agreement signed and stuff like that. So I think it's a lot easier conversation to have.
Yep.
Than somebody who maybe they inherited the house or whatever they're going through.
Agreed. And as I'm thinking about this, each of the 5 pillars, somebody's gonna win each one of them. Single family and multifamily on each one, and then we'll take a vote, or well, not a vote, but we'll see who wins at the end.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so as far as single family marketing aspect, it's the same to market a multifamily as it is to market a single family. You can dial for dollars, you can send out direct mail, you can call brokers, you can get referrals, you can get wholesale deals. That's all the same. You can do all the same things. The difference being you can actually spend a little bit more money on nicer stuff or things that really get in front of a seller on the multifamily side because you have legitimately 5% of the number of leads, right? Of the number of properties that are out there versus, 100 million versus 50,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it 100 million?
100 million.
Yeah, that's a lot. So like you can spend a lot more money on a nicer piece of direct mail, right? And because on a you're not reaching out to so many people and shotgunning this all over the place. You can really work on developing the relationship with a multifamily seller versus, just trying to find single family sellers. The other thing is like you're dealing with very emotional people who might not be real estate experts, who are emotionally tied to that property on the single family side versus multifamily. it's an investment property, right?
Yeah.
So they think like an investor, they think in dollars and decimals. It's a lot less emotional, and you don't have to worry about some of the irrational side of things like we had to deal with a lot in single family. As far as underwriting goes.
Yeah.
All right. So for finding deals, who wins? What's easier to find deals?
Man, I almost want to throw that one a tie.
You think it's so I think it's easier to
just
take down a single family deal.
Well, taking them down is different than finding them.
Right. There's more single family deals, but the quality, multifamily, what's nice is, dude, on single family, you have to take down 100 single family houses if you want 100 units. You can take down one multifamily
I think
property.
that comes in later on. I don't know if you're specifically saying go find a single family deal or a multifamily. Just go find it. Don't necessarily close it. I think, and scaling it, I think it's a little bit of a different question.
Well, it's one single family to one multifamily is apples to oranges.
Yeah.
100 single family to 100 unit multifamily is more apples to apples. Is it easier to find and transact? Let's include the transacting side. Find and transact 100 single family deals or one multifamily deal? One multifamily. One month. Dude, you got one roof versus or one property tax bill versus 100.
Yeah.
One seller versus 100. One financing, one bank to finance a loan versus 100. You have one utility bill, right? One water bill versus 100 water bills. One property tax bill versus 100 property tax bills. So it's just the efficiencies and the scale that it gives you in multifamily. Multifamily, 1 point. Moving along.
Yeah.
Let's hit on underwriting. That's next in the process. Underwriting and doing the due diligence on a single family versus a multifamily. What does it look like, right? To do 100 single family houses versus one 100 unit multifamily property, okay? Difference in underwriting, go.
With multifamily, it's going to be pretty consistent throughout. 100 single families, you might have, I'm going to use Cleveland, Ohio as an example. You could have a single family over in Brunswick, and you could have a single family in the east side of Cleveland. That's almost apples and oranges in itself. Whereas you have just one building, it's going to be pretty consistent. The tax bill is going to be the same, as far as tax rate going. Your rents are going to be pretty similar. I mean, in Brunswick, you could have $1,500 in rent. In East Cleveland, you could have $300 in rent. So just researching rents is going to be 10 times easier. Figuring out how much taxes are going to be is going to be 10 times easier rather than searching it up for 100 different houses.
Right. Right, because you have one building, you look up the rent one time versus you have to look up 100 different rents because they're all in different locations.
Yep.
And it's very variable, right, in that process.
Sure.
Here's the other thing. Multifamily is based on the income approach,
Yep.
right, which is all based on dollars and decimals. It's all based on what is the gross rental revenue minus all the expenses equals the net operating income, and then it's a multiple of that NOI, which is the cap rate, right, in order to give you the valuation on that. Single family is more based on the comparable approach. Hey, I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on Maple Street. There's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that just sold on Oak Street for $250,000, same square footage. That means mine's worth $250,000. The difference, though, the limitation in that is you're basing it on a sale that took place 6 months ago, and as we've seen over the past 18 to 24 months, this market is all over the place, and where numbers are going in a good way and a downward trajectory, depending on the neighborhood that you're in. Not very predictable, right? Not very, like you don't know what the values are going to be 6, 12 months down the road once you renovate the property, get it all rented, and all that kind of stuff. Now, that's if you're flipping, right? We're trying to stick to just rental properties. So you're looking at single family, you're looking at the comparable approach, which is what are other houses in the area selling for, but also you kind of have to value it both ways on the income approach too. If I'm going to spend $250,000 on this house, be all into it, well, what can I rent it for?
Sure.
And you still have to run it through the income approach as well. So you got to be kind of careful on that side. Multifamily is all based on dollars, right? What is the income minus the expenses equals the NOI, and then a multiple of that. So, and then due diligence. right? Like the physical due diligence,
Yeah.
going and inspecting these properties. Is it easier to inspect 100 single-family houses or one 100-unit multifamily property?
Definitely multifamily.
Why?
First of all, you're only posting notices or letting one location know for the most part. Like whenever we do inspections, we post notices on the door, get that out of the way.
To notify the tenants that we're going to be coming through the units, doing the inspection, and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to drive to one location, post it, just go up and down the hallways.
For the most part, the multifamily, it's going to be very similar setups. So if you're going through, you got 100 units, 60 of them are 2-bed, 1-baths. Those 60 units more than likely are going to be about the same. So it's pretty cookie cutter. You don't have to find the nuances of every single single family house. Some might have basements, some might not. Some might have
some are on slabs,
4 bedrooms or 1 or 2 bedrooms or whatever it is. It's much quicker because you get in a rhythm of just checking. You know, hey, out of all of these.
I mean, dude, we've inspected a 100-unit building over the course of 2 days.
Yeah.
Right, and walked every single unit, inside, outside, mechanicals, common areas, and every single tenant unit we've been inside.
Yeah,
and you can do that in 2 days. I don't think it's physically possible to drive to 100 different single-family houses and inspect. I mean, shit. I mean, you couldn't inspect. It would take you 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It would probably take you 10 days.
Yeah,
in order
I've
to
noticed
inspect
you can do 100 to
100
150 units in a day once you get in a rhythm of things. Single family, I mean, there was times when we might go check out 20 or 30 houses, and that was like
it was a week-long process.
That was a couple days.
Yeah.
Process. The other thing is with multifamily is a lot of stuff that you're inspecting was replaced around the same time, at least a good majority of it. So hot water tanks, they might have done all the hot water tanks at one time. They might have done all the furnaces at one time. The windows might be all the same age. And you can go in and bulk replace those things and bulk plan for those things rather than having to go one by one by one.
Yeah, the record keeping is easier.
Exactly.
Yeah, agreed. Underwriting, predictability, financial due diligence, and physical due diligence. I got to give them both to multifamily.
Yeah.
Multifamily, 2 points. Multifamily only needs one more in order to win the entire battle. Single family has to have a streak, dude. They gotta win out the next 3.
I would also add one more thing to underwriting on multifamily or single family. There's more checks and balances on underwriting multifamily. Like I'll underwrite it, then I'll probably get in front of you, and then we'll get in front of our mortgage broker who gets in front of lenders. Like there's a lot more people looking out for it.
That's a great point. It's harder to screw it up, the underwriting.
Yeah.
It's single family. Hey, you're just getting a private money loan, telling your lender it's
kind of whatever you think.
It is,
rather than what the consensus.
It's a lot riskier for the investor. I would say. We're not even getting into that part yet, but it's really, if you don't have all your ducks in a row and you are not on point with the underwriting, you can get in a lot of trouble on the single family side. Multifamily, dude, you're underwriting it, your mortgage broker's underwriting it. The bank's not gonna give you an $8 million loan without underwriting it and sending out their own inspectors as well, right? And typically the property management company is involved in some capacity as well. So you got 3, 4, 5 layers of due diligence being done on a multifamily property versus a single individual underwriting a single family property.
Absolutely.
Good point. All right, so now we're going to move into the funding side of things. Finance and funding. So what does the banking look like and what does the funding look like? This is more my realm, so I'm going to kind of quarterback this one. I will say probably easier to raise money on a single family deal than it is on a multifamily deal because you have typically one investor cannot write a check for the entire downstroke on a multifamily deal, right? You're taking down a $10 million deal, you need to raise $2.5 million for that. That's not typically going to come from one individual. It's typically going to come in $100,000 or $200,000 increments from maybe 10 or 15 different individuals. Now you're securitizing the investment. So now you need SEC paper like compliance, right? Which is private placement memorandums and all sorts of different kinds of things to make sure you're in compliance and everything's above board. So I'll say it's easier to raise money and structure the paperwork on a single family deal.
But that's one single family.
Right. But now, how many promissory notes, mortgages do you need You got to put 100 of those together. And when I balance out 100 mortgages, promissory notes, additional insured on the insurance, all those things that secure an investor on the single family side versus obtaining a loan and then putting the paperwork together one time to then raise money from 25 different investors on the multifamily side, it's hard to compare apples to apples on that side of things. I understand how single family could have a claim to that, and I understand how multifamily could too. I will say, single family investors overall, like private money investors, private money lenders, I've found to be a lot more needy. Maybe that's because I was raising money from people who didn't have a lot of money, or I was earlier on in my career when we were doing single family. Although, dude, we had a lot of experience. We were doing hundreds and hundreds of deals. And so we had a track record. So we had some good people, but I just feel like they needed more attention on the single family side. On the multifamily side, we have people writing us checks for $500,000, $1 million, $250,000. And yeah, they want updates, but we give updates on a quarterly basis. And we deposit their returns on a quarterly basis. And typically they're entrepreneurs. So they're out there finding or building out their business, and they're like, don't bother me unless something's wrong, right?
Sure.
So that's a really cool person to work with, because you're able to stay in your zone, they're able to stay in their zone, they know the money's taken care of. Take some relationship building, right, to build up that trust. But I find they're not as needy. And when shit goes south or shit goes wrong, which always does on single family and multifamily deals, they're just more understanding, I feel like. They're like, okay, well, hey, no problem. We can work through it and keep me posted. Let me know what's going on. And that could be the case for both single family and multifamily. So I'm kind of torn. What do you think? Single family and multifamily as far as raising money from private investors, which is only half the coin right now.
I think multifamily is a shinier object for investors. So I think it's easier. I think people know it's more long-term. So like you said, they're not hounding you, they're not trying to get you. They know it's more of a long-term play. I'm leaning towards multifamily.
The other thing I'll say is hard money lenders on single family are typically in that 15 to 18, maybe even more.
Yeah.
In a rate that they're expecting. We go to debt funds who are essentially hard money lenders on multifamily, and typically it's 8 to 11% with 1 or 2 points, right? So it's actually cheaper hard money on multifamily than it is on single family because you have more scale to it.
Sure. I think it would, if you gave me 100 houses and 100 unit apartment building, I think it would be much more difficult to place the money over 100.
They have to underwrite the deals too, right?
Yeah.
So now you're going through, it's just a lot more process to raise the money and put investment summaries together and put packages together for the investors and all those kinds of things. And updating those investors on a monthly basis across 100 properties versus updating 25 investors on a single update that you put together and you update all of them.
Yep.
All right, that side of the coin is won by multifamily for sure. On the financing side, is it easier to get funding from a bank for single family versus multifamily? This is the other side of the funded coin. Single family underwrites the individual about 90% and the property about 10%. It's completely the opposite with multifamily or commercial. It's 90% about the property, 10% about the borrower. So if you find a great asset, you will get it funded. That will come through, regardless of your financial bankability, right? On the single family side, you can either go to a bank for funding, but I think it caps out on these FHA loans. I don't know, I haven't been in single family. Shit, when was the last single family we had? 2017?
Yeah.
So it's been 4 years. And I think at that time you were capped out at 10 FHA loans or whatever. But if a bank keeps it on their own balance sheet, all that kind of stuff, you can have more single family loans. I just think there's a lot more hoops to jump through on the single family side than there is on the multifamily side. It's easier for me to go and get a $10 million, $8 million multifamily loan, and I'm trying to refinance my house right now, than it is for me to refinance my house on a single family loan.
Yeah.
where I have enough cash in the bank to just pay for it, right?
Yeah.
And they're not willing to give me a loan, or they're making me jump through all these hoops and all this paperwork and all this nonsense, versus the multifamily. I feel just bankability, man. Multifamily is easier.
Yeah, and another thing which kind of comes into operations a little bit too, but it goes with this. Let's say for some reason you can't qualify for the loan, or you can't sign on the loan, or you don't have the experience of owning that kind of multifamily. These deals are so big, there's enough room to chop it up. And hey, maybe I give up 30% equity or 40% equity to somebody who can't qualify for the loan or does have the management. Single family, if you're carving up 50 grand of equity, it's just not.
Yeah,
it's just
you can't attract A players. That's a great point.
No,
it's a great point. Funding section, multifamily. All right, so multifamily has one. We don't even need to finish the last two sections, which is operations and exit strategies. However, I want to see if multifamily is just going to run with it and going to have a perfect game. You cool with that?
Let's do it.
Operations. Is it easier to operate, meaning renovate? Let's talk about the renovation, and then we'll talk about the management and tenant interaction side of things. So, as far as project management of project managing, overseeing contractors, overseeing the value add, renovation process, is it easier to renovate apartments or single family?
Again, it comes down to scale. It's easily multifamily, because
I think this is black and white multifamily 100%.
Yeah,
this is like not even debatable.
If I have a 100-unit apartment building, and I have to go buy 100 hot water tanks. You think they're charging me the same for one hot water tank as they are for 100?
Well,
no way.
But if you had, to be fair to the single family side, if you had 100 hot water tanks all on the single family side, all go out at once, and you had to go buy 100 over there, right? You're going to get the same bulk buying distance.
But you got to drop them off at 100 and
you got to deliver them to 100 different locations. They could be different sizes, right? You could have an 80-gallon hot water tank, 100-gallon hot water tank, depending on how big the house is. They're not all installed the same way, right? Like when we go into a multifamily property, you install the flooring in one unit. Now it's just copy and paste. Do it in every single unit, right? Once the workers are in there and the laborers are in there and they install the flooring, they're like, oh, this is easy. Let's just rip it out, because we know exactly what the subfloor looks like across all 100 units. Very different in multifamily. You could have tile as a subfloor. You could have hardwoods as a subfloor. You could just have, the fuck is it? Not drywall. What's the plywood as a subfloor, right? So like, what is there's it's just predictable, and it's so and it's the same type of electrical outlets, right? The same type of plumbing. And
you've said it before. Boring is what makes you money.
Exactly.
That's it.
Right.
The boring rehab, the over and over and over.
Just duplicatable. Just boring, doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's what prints money. And you don't have the customizable aspect that you need. Hey, I got to go over to Home Depot or Lowe's and have them put it in their computer, all the measurements of the kitchen, so that way they can put all the cabinets there, right? Versus a little galley kitchen in a multifamily property, and you got 100 of those exact same layouts. You measure it one time, you order the cabinets one time, and they send it to you 100 different cabinets, right? Same thing with the countertops. Same thing with vanities for the bathrooms and everything else. And you can just take the exact same finishes, flooring, paint, fixtures, cabinets, countertops, everything, multiplied across 100 units. Bless you. Excuse me. Multiplied across 100 units on the multifamily side. Single family has to be customized. You can use the same paint, you can use the same flooring, but again, the install side of things could be different, right? And so, you have all the stuff delivered to one location instead of 100 locations. There's so much more scale in the project management side than there is in multifamily than there is in single family. Hands down, easier. How about property management though, right? Single family, you got people who rent a single family home. They're responsible for the upkeep of the grass. They're responsible for taking out the trash. They're responsible for paying the utility bills, typically. They treat it maybe more as a home, maybe, versus multifamily, you got a renter, right? You got a tenant in place, renting an apartment. Maybe there's more turnover in multifamily, less turnover in single family. But I mean, what are your thoughts on both of those?
Yeah, I mean, just as far as turnover, if you have a single family home, and let's say you don't have 100 units. Let's say you have two single family homes. If you have one vacancy, you're 50% occupancy, you're kind of in trouble.
Yep. Or to be fair, if you had a duplex versus 2 single family, right? Like you're in the same ratio.
Yeah.
So we got to compare 100 single family to 100 multifamily.
Yeah.
As far as property management goes, you had alluded to this earlier. You got to access the units, especially all of the units. You got to drive all over to get to that. You need to check 100 tax bills and make sure 100 tax bills are paid at the end of the year versus 1 tax bill. You need to make sure the tenants are paying those utility bills, 100 of them, versus you paying the utility bill and knowing it's paid for, right? Is there less turnover in single family? We had some single family rentals. Now, I will say that most of them were in tougher parts of town because it was mostly when we were first getting started. So there was a lot of turnover in those properties, way more so actually than there was. And I think this really comes down to the area that you're investing in versus single family versus multifamily. Mm-hmm. Are you investing in D class, C class, B class, or A class areas? If you're in A and B class areas, those tenants just tend to stay. Mm-hmm. As long as the place is clean, safe, functional, and you're taking care of it, you're a good landlord, they will stay whether it's multifamily or single family. I would probably lean that they probably stay a little bit longer on on the single family side than they do on the multifamily side. But I will also say that I've seen single family tenants destroy houses.
Sure. Absolutely.
Just as much, if not more so, than multifamily. Because multifamily, there's people around, right?
Yeah.
There's inspectors coming through, there's management coming through, there's maintenance people coming through, there's on-site property managers who are walking around and putting their eyes on these units.
It's a smaller area that has checks and balances for them not destroying anything.
Yep. So the question here is this: is the tenant turnover, does that outweigh everything else on the management efficiencies that multifamily has?
No.
I agree. Operations, project management, property management, multifamily. So multifamily's on a 4-0 run right now, all right?
Yep.
The last pillar is the exit strategies. The different exit strategies for single family versus the different exit strategies for multifamily. What are your exit strategies in multifamily? Got to sell it to another investor.
Yep.
It's only going to be an investment group that comes in. It is very predictable what you can get for it.
Yep.
And we're going to assume that you're buying it, refinancing it, holding it for a period of time, but whether it's single family or multifamily. And then we're going to say, hey, in the future, what does it look like? Right? Well, we already know that the financing is easier on the multifamily side than it is than the single family. But I'm not going to weigh that into the exit strategies. That's just on the financing funded portion. So let's bring in, is it easier to sell? The operations, we talked about property management and the operations side too. So you can't really talk about that in the exit strategy. We got to specifically focus on just exit strategy. Is it easier to sell a single family house, 100 single family houses that are rentals, or 100 unit apartment building?
You're selling the 100 single families at once, like as one package? Maybe not.
Yeah, or individually. Is it easier to sell off 100 single family houses, or is it easier to sell one multifamily apartment? You got
probably one multifamily, like just inspections and walkthroughs and everything, and having to coordinate all of that for a single family would be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
It would be an absolute.
Well, you got 100 listing agreements.
Yeah, 100 listing agreements. Who knows how many you might not.
You're negotiating with 100 buyers.
Yeah.
I mean, you're at minimum you're negotiating with 100 buyers.
Yeah.
Right? Over here, you're making people come through some sort of qualification process. Are they bankable? Right? Do they have the net worth? Do they have the liquidity? Do they have the experience to even buy this? Because if not, I'm not even looking at them.
Yep.
Right? Like you legitimately have to probably deal with 3 to 10 times more buyers. Oh shit, dude, you got to deal with literally like 300 times more buyers on the single family side than you do on the multifamily side. So now you got 100 closings versus 1 closing. Closing cost ratios, that should probably mostly balance out. But you got to go and sign paper 100 times versus 1 time. The benefit that single family has is they can sell to an investor, or they can kick out the tenant, clean it all up, and sell it to an owner-occupant. And potentially get more money because it's somebody who gives it more value because they're going to live there. They're buying it based on emotion and maybe comparables versus the investment side of things.
Sure.
So if you're looking at, depending on the type of single family you're buying, if it's under $100,000, I would say that's very comparable to, you're going to sell it probably to another investor, just like a multifamily. So I would say those equate. But if it's over $100,000, you could probably sell it to an owner-occupant and maybe get more money than what the dollar revenue and rental revenue would give it from a valuation standpoint, right? From the income approach versus the comparable approach, it's probably worth more in comps to an owner-occupant than it is to an investor. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I got to give single family the vote on being able to potentially get more per unit over here. But to your point before, does that outweigh the availability and like the headaches that you have to jump through in order to go through that whole process, right? I would say it's much easier to sell a 100-unit apartment building to one investor than it is to sell 100 single family units to one investor.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right? But how much more money can you get in a single family portfolio than you can in a multifamily deal because you can sell it to a bunch of owner occupants and you have that exit strategy. The other thing is we have some deals down in Savannah, Georgia, where we're building 165 townhomes. Half of them are already built, finishing up the other half this year. 165 townhomes that are all separately parceled, but we got financing as a package because they're all adjoining parcels. And they just underwrote it as they underwrote it as one single multifamily deal, but each property has a buyout where we could sell it to an owner occupant if they wanted to buy it at a premium. Maybe we can sell it to an investor for $130,000 a door. We sell it to an owner occupant for $150,000 a door. So it gives us the option, the ability to manage and operate and fund it and find it as a multifamily deal, but we have the same exit strategies as a single family side of things. You can't necessarily do that. Well, I guess you could do it with apartments too. If you wanted to take an entire apartment building and convert it to condos and sell it off one by one, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of legal expense that goes into that, but it could be done on multifamily too. Weigh it all out, man. Who gets it? Multifamily or single family? Multifamily, 5-0, complete, total knockout to single family. 100% of the time, multifamily beats single family on the investment side.
Yeah.
If you want to build real wealth, you got to get into multifamily real estate.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
All right, do not buy, well, you can listen, I'd rather see you invest in anything than nothing. But if you really want to scale up, you want to build long-term wealth, build a legacy for your family, then you got to get into bigger stuff. You got to think bigger. You got to take bigger action and get into bigger projects. So go out, buy some multifamily. If you haven't been to Commercial Empire, you got to come to Commercial Empire. We host events, virtual events, a few times a year. Plug in, check out commercialempire.com and see when our next event is. And we record it. So even if you can't come to the event, you have the recording of the event and access to a whole bunch of other resources. So check out commercialempire.com and learn how to invest in multifamily real estate.